My train wreck of my marriage. Cheating wife. I met my wife in 2007. We were married in 2009. We had our daughter in 2010. I was an operations manager for a nationwide security company. I'm in charge of a large region in the country, managing a staff of between 100 and 120, depending on the time of year. Previously, I served over 11 years in the Army, paratrooper, qualified unit and Army sniper. My wife's pregnancy was difficult towards the end. She has preeclampsia, pregnancy diabetes, and high blood pressure. When my wife went into labor, she was 2 weeks early. The birth ended up taking 3 days. Our daughter Kaylee was finally born. But due to her early birth, and all the drugs they gave my wife to induce labor, and that Kaylee had jaundice, our daughter had to spend 3 weeks in the special care unit. I held our daughter's tiny hand as they put a tube in her nose to feed her. My wife was able to stay with her the entire time, as in the special unit. They had rooms for the mothers. I still went to work. During this time, I'd wake up at 5 a.m. to be at the special care unit, and after 7 days to help Kaylee's 6 a.m. feeding, go to work at 8 a.m., then spend my lunch hour at the hospital at 12 p.m., then back at work at 1 p.m., finish work at 5 p.m., back home to wash wife's clothes, cook her some dinner, then up to the special care unit. By 1830 hours home, by 2200 hours to start it all again. My wife started showing the signs of postnatal depression. So after 2 weeks, I brought my family home. I took 2 weeks off work, and we started to get used to our new life as a family. With my wife's postnatal depression, I decided to do all of Kaylee's feedings during the night, as my wife was expressing milk. So this was possible after the 2 weeks was up. I had to go back to work, so I kept sneaking home to do housework and sort my wife's lunch to try and help her through this tough time. After a few months, she started to get better. When Kaylee was around 2 years old, my wife's mother had a heart attack and almost died, and my wife fell back into a deep depression. This seemed to be worse than previous, and nothing I did seemed to make a difference. So I asked my wife if she wanted to move closer to her family, just in case, to which she jumped at the idea and said yes. This turned out to be the worst decision of my life. Anyway, I gave my notice in at work, and we made arrangements to move the 500 miles from my family to hers. I found a house, bought it, and we moved in not far from her parents' house, but not once did they come to our home to visit or for coffee. Nothing that should have been the first red flag anyway. It didn't take long to see why my wife had moved so far from her family. Her entire family. Mother, father, and brother treated my wife like a doormat, and very badly, always taunting and picking on her, calling her fat or insulting her looks or ideas, and generally being very mean towards her. Now, as my wife's husband, if you insult my wife, you are insulting me, in my opinion. So I would start defending her to her family, which would always end up with everyone fighting me, including my wife. After about 6 months of this, I turned to my wife on the drive home and told her that I would no longer be going to her parents' house. After about a week, my wife started to get very depressed again, as she didn't have me defending her any longer this time. I didn't know what to do to help her, so I suggested that's on a Friday or Saturday, that she go out with her old friends to reconnect to friends, my second biggest mistake. These nights would usually start out with her meeting her friends at her parents' house, have a few drinks, then head into town. I wasn't aware that my wife's mother, Lindley, was inviting my wife's old boyfriends around at the same time. During this time, sex between me and my wife started to get even less infrequent prior to our wedding. It was 2 to 3 times a day after the wedding. It was once every couple of days to once a week after the birth of our daughter. The wife would usually come home drunk and be wasted for the weekend, which suited me fine, as I would just start going out with our daughter to the parks or train rides or bushwalks. The day my wife left me that morning, she fucked my brains out before work, then broke up with me in the afternoon to say this hit me, as a surprise was a massive understatement. I still was unaware of my wife's infidelity. The first few days I pleaded and begged for us to try and fix things. But no matter what I said, it only made her more adamant to leave. I curled up in a corner of our house with the blinds closed. I just wanted to die. I was hurt, confused, and in a state of constant disbelief. I couldn't eat anything every time I tried. I was physically sick. After a couple of weeks, my wife brought a bus ticket back to my family, where we originally came from. I stayed at friends we had set up the best man at my wedding, Anthony, a guy I had served in that army with, and Emma, my wife's friend and bridesmaid. I was living in their garage after a week. I decided I just needed to get away from everyone and everything, so I grabbed my hunting gear. My friend Tony drove me out to the bush, and he told me he was concerned for my well-being. I told him that he had nothing to worry about, but he said that he was coming out every few days to check on me. He headed off, and I headed in as it was around 1700 hours. I only had about 2 hours of daylight, so I headed in and made camp. The next day, I woke up. It was a brilliant sunny day. I found a clearing nearby and sat on a rock. I started crying uncontrollably. I grabbed my rifle, loaded a round in the chamber, put the muzzle in my mouth and pulled the trigger. The round didn't fire. I immediately thought of my daughter and how selfish what I had just tried to do was. I lost it completely. I cried and sobbed until I couldn't cry any longer, and made a decision then and there that I would never do something so selfish and stupid ever again. I also decided that I had to move forward with my life to do this. I would move overseas to a different country where my family was situated, get a good job in the mines, and rebuild my life again. Oh, and before I forget, I'm still not sure why the bullet didn't fire that day. I was using old World War II. Era 303, tracer ammo had shot thousands of the same type of ammo and never had one misfire. I inspected the round's primer, and it had a good strike on it from the firing pin, and the gunpowder stripes were dry, so the only conclusion I came to was a faulty primer. I stayed out hunting for another 4 weeks. Every day I was out. I was getting stronger and stronger, and Tony was coming out every few days. I never told him about my suicide attempt. 2 weeks later, I had sold everything and brought my tickets, left the country, and went home to my mother, 5 sisters and brother. 2 weeks after that, I had a job in an open-cut mine as a shot firer with an annual salary of over $200,000 a year. I was on a fly-in, fly-out FIFO roster of 2 weeks on 1 week off. And in this time, I kept in contact with my wife and daughter, and I was truly hoping at reconciliation every time I had off. I sent my wife $2,000 cash and clothes and stuff for Kaylee. I also kept in contact with Tony and Emma, and on a call with Tony 6 months later, he asked me if I was sending my wife any money. I told him that I was, and it was $2,000 a month. There was silence on the phone. I knew there was something very wrong, so I asked him to just come out and say it. He then told me how my wife had admitted to Emma that she had been cheating on me 6 months before her leaving me. I lost it. I hung up and immediately called my wife, who I confronted about the accusation, and it took over 60 minutes of lies and deflection and accusations for her to admit the truth when she knew that I knew about her cheating and that it was truly over between us. She changed completely. She did the only thing left for her to hurt me with our daughter. She cut all contact between us. As I had money, I contracted lawyers to start family court proceedings to re-establish contact between me and my daughter. It took 10 months and over $40,000 in lawyers' fees. I won the case and was given my rights back as a father. I started video calling Kaylee every Tuesday and Thursday. This lasted for about 1.5 years, until my wife discovered that I was no longer working in the mines, on the good money. So she then cut all contact again for the second time, breaking the family court ruling, but with nothing to fight it with this time. How can someone you loved so completely turn into something so evil? I can't comprehend it. I could never have done what she did to me and Kaylee. My wife has stolen something that I will never ever get back. The last time I saw my daughter, she was 5. She is now 15. I think about her all the time. I am in constant sadness.